We are now moving on to a very important part of our programme. We'll be hearing from young people who are here to represent each of the British Overseas Territories and the Crown Dependencies. This is the third time we will have had representation from the British Overseas Territories at the UK Parliament sitting, and the second time we'll have representative from the Crown Dependencies. Many of the decisions we make here in the UK have a huge impact on their futures, so I'm very pleased to be able to offer them a platform on which they will represent young people in their territories. The topics for their speeches we're about to hear were voted by over 2,900 young people in the first ever Make Your Mark ballot for the British Overseas Territories and the Crown Dependencies. Young people from the British Overseas Territories choose access to university, apprenticeships, after school or college, and those from the Crown Dependencies chose the cost of living, employment and poverty. We'll hear first from the representatives from the British Overseas Territories on access to university, apprenticeships, after school or college. I now call the youth representative of Anguilla.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honourable Members of Parliament, I must say it is an honour to stand before you as a youth parliamentarian representing Anguilla to speak on education and learning. Though small, Anguilla prioritises education as a driver of progress. Our government invests in quality learning, ensuring young people gain the skills needed to contribute meaningfully to society. As education evolves, we remain committed to innovation, inclusivity, and excellence. The provided $4.5 million in scholarships has expanded access to universities and apprenticeships, but we must go further. Stronger collaboration between schools, colleges, and industries will bridge the gap between education and employment, providing practical skills for success. A major challenge is securing funding for interactive learning. Initiatives like Promethean boards, laptops, and online platforms enhance inclusivity, particularly for students with special needs. Continued investment is essential to equip all students for the workforce. Education also plays a vital role in reducing youth violence. Without clear opportunities, young people become vulnerable to negative influences. A strong education system backed by proper resources not only empowers youth, but also creates a safer, more prosperous society. I commend Anguilla's government for prioritizing education and investing millions. However, we cannot do it alone. With more and continued UK support, we can ensure every young person reaches their full potential. Investing in the youth strengthens Anguilla and helps break cycles of violence in our communities. I thank you.
The youth representative from Bermuda.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, education is the foundation of a thriving society that empowers and equips individuals with skills and knowledge. As Bermuda restructures its public education system, I urge our leaders to focus on bringing light, liberty, and learning to everyone. Bermuda's 2016 Census Education Brief underscores the link between education and socioeconomic mobility. It focuses on the academic attainment of the population aged 25 to 64. Although Bermuda's residents have made progress in educational attainment, significant differences remain, specifically regarding Bermudian status, race, and sex. Mr. Speaker, Bermudians lag behind non-Bermudians in university degree attainment, with only 30% holding a degree compared to 52% of non-Bermudians. This reflects recruiting overseas workers to fill professional, senior official, and managerial positions. These differences in educational attainment persist along other platitudes: white Bermudians more than black Bermudians, and women more than men. These differences are reminiscent of economic, social, and historical barriers that have no place on the island aiming for prosperity. We can break these barriers by inspiring a balance between intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. This alludes to the skewed wealth accumulation on our island, as degree holders earn more than those without qualifications. Furthermore, limited education restricts upward mobility, emphasizing the need for lifelong learning and upskilling to compete in the job market. Mr. Speaker, scholarships have reduced financial obstacles to education. However, if we desire to help Bermudians climb the socioeconomic ladder, we must avoid framing education solely as a stepping stone to employment. Instead, consider education a valuable pursuit and encourage individuals to appreciate lifelong learning. In closing, Mr. Speaker, Indian writer Shakuntala Devi once said, "Education is not just about going to school and getting a degree. It's about widening your knowledge and absorbing the truth about life. By embracing this philosophy, we will cultivate a skilled and prepared generation to contribute to a better Bermuda and world." Thank you.
Can we have the youth representative of the British Virgin Islands?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Education is so often referred to as the key to success, but what happens when that key is not accessible to all? I stand before you as a young voice from the British Virgin Islands to highlight the critical issue of educational access for students from the overseas territories. Students from the BVI and other overseas territories face significant financial barriers to higher education abroad, particularly in the UK. While home fee status and tuition loans may help, the lack of maintenance loans remains a major hurdle, often forcing students to abandon their studies due to living costs. At the May 2023 Joint Ministerial Council, the UK and territory ministers acknowledged this issue, but no concrete solutions have emerged, limiting students' access to UK education. Beyond academia, regular extreme climatic weather events have highlighted a shortage of skilled tradespeople. In response, our ministry, along with our local college, launched a technical vocational apprenticeship program to equip youth with practical skills. However, more must be done to elevate apprenticeships and vocational training as a viable career path, ensuring both community resilience and sustainable futures for our youth. I urge our government to advocate for maintenance loans for overseas territory students to remove financial barriers, and invest in vocational training and apprenticeships to address critical skills shortages. By taking these steps, we honor our commitment to resilience, self-reliance, and the empowerment of our youth. Let us ensure that every young person in the British Virgin Islands and other overseas territories has the opportunity to unlock their full potential. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We now come to the youth representative of Cayman Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon. My name is Jack Hurlston, and I am honoured to be here today to representing my home country, our beloved Cayman Islands. A small Caribbean nation of around 85,000 people, we are a nation striving for kindness to be considered synonymous with our culture, having affectionately adopted the Department of Tourism slogan, Cayman Kind. I am grateful for this platform to speak on a topic of growing concern to me and my peers. One of insufficient accessibility to quality secondary education and inability to accommodate our neurodiverse student population or those with special learning requirements. With a rapidly increasing youth population, all schools within our islands are already at carrying capacity, and a post-pandemic population surge has led to an even further reduced number of places available to neurotypical secondary students, let alone individuals with learning differences. Having personally struggled with a challenging learning style since early childhood, I too had difficulty finding a place in a quality mainstream school for my crucial secondary years, and was left with little option but to look at alternatives abroad to further my studies and achieve maximum academic potential. This predicament ultimately led me to the UK to study for my GCSEs, and although this move has been beneficial for me, it is my perspective that, despite the best efforts of charitable organizations and accessibility advocates, much more support and assistance is necessary in Cayman to equalize opportunities and help the growing number of students with special learning requirements, many of whom do not have the option to study abroad in the UK. Through policy intervention, investment and oversight, Further action could be taken to help all Commonwealth students achieve their highest potential in their home countries, supporting and providing dedicated educational resources for our neurodiverse populations, and allowing for the delivery of world-class education that we are privileged to already have access to here in the UK. In closing, we are one British family, and there should be equal access for all, no matter our country of origin or diverse way of learning. We're all in this together and must look out for one another. We must be kind, courteous, and most of all, caring. Thank you for allowing me to speak to an issue facing many in our Commonwealth nations. We are blessed by our commonality and our ability to learn from each other to solve our shared issues. Thank you.
We now have the youth representative of the Falkland Islands.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Stanley Betts, and I'd like to thank the Speaker for giving me this opportunity to share my experience as an overseas student from the Falkland Islands. I'm currently in my second year of A-levels, and I want to share how the Falkland Islands has benefited my education and students like me. Unlike the Cayman Islands and other territories, we have limited access to higher education and certain apprenticeships. Instead, the Falkland Island government funds students to study abroad, with the Education Department standing at $10.7 million. Over $1 million spent on further education, supporting accommodation, travel fees, and university debt for those who continue their education. Many study at Peter Symonds, Winchester and Chichester College in the UK, or in New Zealand due to its agricultural ties. While students have no obligation to return after being funded, this goodwill gesture encourages many to contribute to the community, showing that funding is not just for the individual, but an investment for the Falkland Islands. Apprenticeship students return in skills like carpentry and plumbing, essential for the maintaining infrastructure and supporting the growth of Stanley and the islands overall. Studying abroad also means we must quickly adapt to a new environment and education system. For some, it is their first extended stay in the UK or their first visit altogether. I found that transitioning to living without my family was an adjustment. Fortunately, many UK colleges that welcome overseas students often share halls of residence, allowing me to live with my friends from the islands, easing homesickness and making the experience more comfortable. The Falkland Islands are in a unique position as an overseas territory when it comes to education, yet I believe we have a system that other territories could adopt with its strong support for the youth. I hope the Falklands approach to an education inspires discussion on overseas students worldwide. Thank you for your time.
We now come to the youth representative of Gibraltar.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is James Vinette, and I am a proud British Gibraltarian. When we're thirsty, we open the tap. We never question the availability of clean, plentiful water. But for millions around the world, safe drinking water is a luxury. It can often almost be impossible to come by. The same can be said about education. Though small in size, Gibraltar has always understood that knowledge is the foundation of opportunity. Every classroom, every book, every teacher is a testament to the belief that education is a necessity. Mr. Speaker, as you know, as the Chancellor of the University of Gibraltar, the government funds our university studies in the UK, tuition fees and maintenance grants. But that privileged access to education is not something that we should ever take for granted. Our investment in education has shaped generations, allowing the Rock and its people to thrive, despite the many challenges we have faced and still continue to face. Every young person in Gibraltar, regardless of gender, background, or circumstance, is given the tools to succeed. Because, Mr. Speaker, education is the key to empowerment, and no nation, big or small, can progress without it. But for some, access to education is an impossibility. In Afghanistan, the Taliban deprives millions of girls and women of an education. There, the future of an entire generation is in jeopardy. I believe that without international pressure from the UN, the EU, and other influential bodies like the Commonwealth, injustices like these will prevail. So we all have a shared role in education. We all have a shared responsibility. Let us, together and collectively, ease the pathway to universities apprenticeships, and to a bright future. Students, parents, educators, industry, and more widely governments and international bodies, let us all ensure that everyone has the same opportunities that many of us are lucky to enjoy. Thank you.
The youth representative of Montserrat.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the Youth Parliament, I am Shari Bazi, the proud representative of the lush green and beautiful Emerald Isle, Montserrat. Mr. Speaker, education is a social process that molds young people into individuals living purposeful and dignified lives. It contributes significantly to the formation of society structure when combined with other social forces. Access to education, whether it's through traditional universities or alternative vocational scenarios such as apprenticeships, plays an essential role in our personal and professional growth. Mr. Speaker, education is one of the most powerful forces behind social mobility, yet access remains unequal. Studies show that education provides the skills and credentials needed for stable employment and higher wages. However, despite more people than ever before having access to education, social mobility in the UK is at its lowest level in over 50 years, according to a 2023 report by the Institute for Fiscal Studies. Mr. Speaker, if access has expanded, then why does inequality persist? The real issue is not just access, but who gets access. Did you know that students from underprivileged backgrounds are nearly 3 times less likely to gain admission to university or an apprenticeship compared to their more affluent peers? This is not just a UK issue. It is a reality for many under-resourced countries, including Montserrat. Currently, Montserrat has no full-time university, no vocational or technical college, and limited structured apprenticeship. Mr. Speaker, today I stand here as a representative of students who must leave their homes, families, and communities in search of higher education. As an engineering student at the Waltham Forest College, I can safely conclude that access to university and apprenticeship is easier now, but remains limited. Mr. Speaker, while preparing this speech, I reflected upon my peers that are often faced with financial and logistical barriers. While the government of Montserrat does offer some scholarships, many students struggle to secure funding for overseas studies. This, Mr. Speaker, limits their opportunities, and that is unacceptable. Every student, regardless of their background, financial status, or country of birth, deserves an equal opportunity to succeed. Yet, for students from Montserrat and the other UK overseas territories, the barriers are even greater. Many of us are British citizens, yet we lack the same educational infrastructure and support as students in the UK. If we are truly a part of the British family, then we must be granted the same opportunities to learn, to grow, and to contribute to society. We need a system that recognizes the unique challenges faced by students from under-resourced communities and countries alike. This means creating pathways that reflect the diverse needs of all students through inclusive education policies, expanded apprenticeships, and increased financial support. Education, Mr. Speaker, is not a privilege, it is a right. Investing in the future of Montserrat and the other overseas UK territories is investing in the future of Britain itself. I thank you.
No, this is, with many firsts today, I'm going to introduce Owen, who's the youngest person ever to speak in this chamber, and he comes from the remotest place in the world, a part of the overseas territories known as Tristan da Cunha. Can we give a very warm welcome?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think I might be the youngest person to ever deliver a speech in this amazing chamber. Well, I might be young, but like everyone here, I got dreams. And I know that education and training is how I make them come true. I come from the remotest community on the planet, on Tristan da Cunha. We are 1,500 miles from the nearest neighbours, and a week at sea from the nearest airport. I wake up every day and hear the sounds of crashing waves and singing birds. My island is beautiful, but living there and getting educated there does come with challenges. We have only one school and just a handful of trained teachers. They each have to teach lots of subjects, and if one of them leaves, it's hard to find a replacement. Our resources for learning are limited. We only have a small library and not enough equipment for things like science experiments, but we are creative and we always make the most of what we have. Our internet connection has just got much faster. The school is already making good use of it, linking us with specialist teachers. We're now learning, playing and connecting online in ways we never thought possible. My dream is to pass my IGCSEs and then get trained to be a mechanic. Those skills could take me anywhere in the world, and they're precious back home on Tristan, where we repair our own machinery. I have to leave the island to get my training. That's expensive, and going so far from home is tough for young people. But I hope the island and UK will support me. Living on a remote island means we will know each other's business, but also means great friendship and a strong community. We face challenges, but we find ways to overcome them. Whether it's helping each other study, sharing resources, or just dreaming big about the future.
Well done. Right, we come to the youth representative, Turks and Caicos.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good day to my fellow youth representatives and MYPs. My name is Damari Fulford from the beautiful, by nature, Turks and Caicos Islands, and today I am honoured to stand before you to emphasise what I believe that access to education through university and apprenticeships is the foundation for a brighter future in our islands. This year, our government's annual international scholarship program has opened doors for over 100 exceptional Turks and Caicos Islanders like myself to study at universities all over the world. In 2020, we started a national internship and apprenticeship program that's provided over 200 participants placements, allowing students to work in related fields of studies and industries to improve our human capital, which I am proud to state. However, an important question we must ask ourselves is, are we equally committed to provide opportunities for students studying in the creative and performing arts as we are to those in STEM and tourism in Turks and Caicos? Every student has the right and deserves a chance to fully pursue their passions, Mr. Speaker, without feeling pressure to follow traditional paths based on societal expectations such as conventional financial standards and negative labeling on the arts, as I have experienced as a current music student at the University of Nottingham. By broadening our view of education, opportunities and resources, Mr. Speaker, we empower and encourage individuals to thrive in areas that not only bring them personal fulfillment, but also contribute to our growth of our economies and communities. In 2024 alone, reports say that the music and entertainment industry has contributed £7.6 billion to the British economy. Additionally, countries such as our neighbours Jamaica grew in popularity based on the rise in their global reggae music. And I believe Turks and Caicos can do the same with our very own rake and scrape genre to attract more tourists annually. Therefore, if we invested more in nurturing and making our creative industries more accessible, we will have the key to a well-rounded and prosperous society. For these are not simply hobbies, Mr. Speaker, but these are investments to diverse educational pathways, which will build a stronger and more dynamic Turks and Caicos Islands. So let's champion education in all forms, academic, creative, and technical, because true progress happens when we recognize that success comes in various pathways, and when talent meets opportunities, our islands, my Turks and Caicos Islands, will flourish. Thank you.
We'll now hear from representatives from the Crown dependencies who will talk about the cost of living, employment and poverty. I call the youth representative from Guernsey.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Guernsey is an autonomous jurisdiction. We're not part of the UK and we've never had representation in the UK Parliament. However, that's not to say we're not immensely fond of our neighbours across the sea. We share the same currency as the UK, but we collect and allocate our own taxes, we support our own industries, and we face our own challenges because of that. Guernsey's finance industry employs around 23% of the workforce. Everyone knows someone who's worked in finance or has at some point worked in it themselves, but that hasn't always been the case. In the late 1960s, we packaged and exported almost 500 million tomatoes to the UK, with greenhouses covering swathes of the island. Nowadays, our economic as well as geographical landscape look rather different, with 44% of our GDP coming from finance and its associated activities. So it pays for in taxes a significant proportion of our education, social care and welfare. An issue which has been brought to light by recent inflation is the impact of poverty within our community. Whilst we have over the last decade seen a drop in the proportion of households in relative income poverty, our rate still sits at 19%. However, in Guernsey, we benefit from our small size, with an entire island population of only 64,000 people, and whilst it's cliched, everyone really does know everyone, a factor that can be immensely helpful in hard times. We also, as in the UK, have a declining birth rate, with only 451 babies born in 2023, compared to 631 just 15 years ago. That's a 29% drop in my lifetime, and so we're trying to welcome back more of our own students who must leave age 18 if they wish to attend university, through more affordable housing schemes and on-island training, allowing them to access more profitable jobs whilst returning back to their communities, bringing their skills with them. In conclusion, despite our small size, we found we tackle the same issues as the UK, whether that be a declining birth rate, changing sectors, or the cost of living crisis. And so we work to find a balance that preserves the current economy, but also invests into the youth so we may continue to develop for their future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
We now come to the youth representative of the Isle of Man.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was born and live on the Isle of Man, which is an internally self-governing Crown dependency. In 2006, the Isle of Man, in line with the ongoing work of the government to engage young people with politics, reduced the age to vote to 16. So it is an honour and a privilege to represent the island today at Youth Parliament. Currently, the population of the Isle of Man is just under 85,000, but it is an ageing population which presents some considerable financial challenges for the island. In December 2022, 22.5% of the population was over 65, with the smallest age groups being 17 to 19 and 20 to 24. A contributing factor to these low numbers is the large number of students who, once they've completed their A-levels, need to leave the island to attend university and gain qualifications they are unable to attain on the island, with many failing to return once qualified. As the Isle of Man is classed as overseas, the tuition costs are more than those who are living in the UK. The Department of Education, Sport and Culture recognise these challenges and have heavily invested in the Isle of Man College, the only further education establishment on the island. Working with Chester University, they have developed the college to university status and have significantly increased the number of courses and qualifications available to Manx students. The destination data from 2013 for 2024 for Year 13 leavers shows a continuing trend for school leavers choosing to move straight into the workforce. Many have been successful in securing learn-as-you-earn roles, which is very positive news for the island's economy as we are successfully retaining our young people. The Isle of Man delivered its budget recently, the focus of which was sustainability. If the island is to create a sustainable economic future, it needs to ensure it retains its young people, diversifies the economy, and capitalises on the strengths of the island to attract new, economically active residents. Only when we have a sustainable, economically active population will the island have revenue to support and care for those in true need. Thanks.
All right. I now call the youth representative of Jersey.
Firstly, I'd like to express my thanks to the Speaker for inviting me to speak today, and I'm very grateful for this opportunity. Jersey boasts an economy of over 5.7 billion per annum and an average GDP of around 55,000 per person, which puts us among the top 20 economies globally for living standards. Even though we have a wealthy and strong economy for our size, we are facing potential economic pressure and demographic shifts in the next decade due to an ageing population, decreasing birth rates, and low adoption of new technology. Birth rates in 2024 for Jersey were the lowest since 1945, having fallen 10% since the previous year. These statistics predict a major challenge in Jersey's ratio of working and non-working islanders, which could lead to a decline of revenue to run public services and ultimately a drop in living standards. There is also an increase in Jersey-born young adults leaving the island due to limited job opportunities, high costs of living, and our current housing situation. A skilled workforce is crucial for productivity and growth in Jersey's changing labour market. Despite high employment levels, we experience skill gaps and labour shortages. Therefore, it is essential to enhance our workforce's skills while balancing inward investment and by providing the right reskilling and upskilling opportunities. As an island, we have set the goal to be a consistently high-performing, environmentally sustainable and technologically advanced economy by 2040. To succeed at this, we must take advantage of the rapidly growing areas of industry such as biotechnology, artificial intelligence and other technological areas, as these industries introduce new jobs to the island that will introduce a new generation of workers. Jersey needs sustainable economic growth that supports family life and development. As an island, we are in a strong position now to acknowledge and act on these problems, and we must do so in the coming years before it's too late. I would like to thank the Speaker again for this opportunity and listening to my presentation.
Can I just say, the future of democracy is very safe. You are the future stars. I can see the MPs, and hopefully the next Speaker is amongst us. And I've got to say a big thank you for all the contributions. I'm sorry for those who didn't, but we've still got this afternoon's sessions. I'd also like to thank the clerks in front of me for what they do, the doorkeepers, everybody who's involved, including my own office team as well. So what that does conclude is this morning's session of our sitting. The Youth Parliament will now adjourn until 1:40 after the official photographs in the chamber. I invite you to return to Westminster Hall after lunch. Order! Order!